Welcome to Collage of Health. Thanks for being here today. It is January 2nd, 2025. Happy New Year to all of you. The other day, just was sitting down, I wasn't in the Akash, and I was just thinking about checking in with my highest self. What are the things that I need to learn as I move into 2025? Like, what are the things that I need to recognize? And so I'm just going to read them to you, take them for whatever they're worth. If they resonate, wonderful. If they don't, they don't. The first was have a backup plan. The second was put on your ice skates. Number 3, people will magnetize to one another. So like will attract like. Count your blessings. Go inward. Expect the unexpected. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number 7 is take the long way home. I'm going to look up what that means. Take the long way home. Okay, I love this interpretation. It's the journey to self-discovery. So perfect. The next one is, it isn't right to find peace in the cause against another. I guess you wouldn't find peace there, but yeah, I guess like don't find peace in knowing you're right and someone's wrong, or a battle between you and the other. Have binoculars, you will need them. Fortitude, that was the word that came through. I said, what, the night before I said, what should I take away from 2024? And they said, you can take away compassion. You've worked on compassion. And then I said, what about 2025? And the word that came up was fortitude. I was like, fortitude? Haven't I had enough fortitude? The generative year, this is a generative period of time for you. Again, these are for you if you want them to be for you. Go with the grain instead of against it. And the last one was to move. So I'm not sure if it meant literally move or move your body, but move came up. Underlined explanation point. Okay, so today's Akash comes with a oracle card and a ruins. Actually, a rune came up in the Akash today. So I'm going to read the meaning of that because it goes along with all of this. And I just want to preface this by saying that I know I've talked about IFS in a previous video, and I found this IFS practitioner who goes way back 50 years as a therapist, working in the early days with Richard Schwartz, who's the person who developed IFS. And at first he was a client, I think, of Schwartz and IFS. And then he became a practitioner, and then he co-taught with Schwartz. And they both have several books out. And I don't know if they've co-authored a book together, maybe not. But I think, I do know Schwartz wrote the forewords to Robert Faulkner's book, The Other Within Us. And it's pretty shamanic. It has to do with what's called unattached burdens. So just a review of what IFS is: internal family systems. We're a family within our body. We have a compilation of parts that are often managers, where they want to dictate how we should behave to protect us in different situations. And oftentimes they're kind of in opposition to each other, like, eat the donut, you're hungry. Don't eat the donut, it's not good for you. And, that's like the simplest version of it. And then behind it is the child who's been told, don't eat the donut because it's going to make you tired, fat, yada, yada. And then that rebellious exiled child who didn't have a voice, maybe. So anyway, IFS is under the preface that there are no bad parts. What Schwartz found and what Faulkner fixated on was these unattached burdens, which were tags that we have that aren't ours to own. And it could be what's called a legacy burden, which is almost like an epigenetic carryover from our ancestries that, you know, we respond in a certain way or have certain preferences that aren't really ours. They're just things that we've carried into this lifetime to maybe, you know, possibly alchemize or to change. But then they kind of found through the rabbit hole of working with people that some parts don't have the person's best interests and they're not a part of the person. They are like entity attachments that need to be freed up if they can be to go to the light. But in order to free these parts up, these unattached burdens, so to speak, they're not parts in the way that Schwartz defined parts as benign entities that protect us. These unattached burdens sometimes get lodged in us because our parts see the benefit of them as either something that will be bigger than self-energy. So it's almost like this spiritual warfare that we see out there actually happens in here. And there are varying degrees of, just going to take a break. Sorry about that. My dog went to eat a ghee candle that I had left out while I was on the internet or on the Zoom. So it's almost like this spiritual warfare not only takes place outside of us, it's taking place within us. And it's just very synchronistic that this Faulkner is offering this kind of a study group of practitioners where we can experience all of this, like what's inside of us. Because sometimes what's in us too are spirit guides. These pieces of us that aren't us, maybe, that are so embedded in us that they guide us. And that's kind of a beautiful thing. There are guides, you know, they're the voices within that maybe are tuned to other vibrations of energies that, like, I know a lot of people who see Archangel Michael as such, where, anyway, I'm not going to get down the rabbit hole of that. So good and evil is playing out outside of us, but it's most importantly playing out inside of us. So it's really kind of cool that I'm getting into this group starting in January, as I'm getting all this information in the Akashic records that is pointing to the need to work with our demons so as to free them so we can go to this next iteration of the new earth. And that might be what our job is right now, more than looking at the Akashic records from the perspective of what's bad out there do I need to know about and protect myself from, but maybe what's not so good inside do I need to look at. So started out with the 7 dwarfs. Hi ho, it's off to work we go. This, and I thought of the 7 chakras, and the clearing of the chakras. Then I got on a magic carpet ride to this other universe, galaxy, and it was green, it was foreign. So I'm on this magic carpet, and it was just very strange, like literally a magic carpet ride. I'm gonna look up what that comes from, magic carpet ride. So I see a lot of interpretations of magic carpet ride, so I'm not even going to go there. I'll let you do that on your own. I'll put Steppenwolf's song in the notes, and you can maybe listen to it and just kind of do your own research. But anyway, I'm on this magic carpet ride. I'm looking at this other galaxy. It's green. It doesn't seem good or bad. It just seems really foreign. And I get a sense it's like multiple verses, like multiple universes. And then the word metaverse came through. And then I go to the ladder where I climb up the ladder to the Council of Light. And my seat is dusty, so I kind of clean it off, and I notice where I'm sitting, and it's this beautiful piece of wood. It's almost like an old stair of an old type of hardwood. It doesn't have any kind of varnish on it. It just has the wood. And I get a message kind of that working with elements right now is going to be important, to really work with basic elements like the fire element and make a fire, do fire ceremonies and work with wood. So I'm sitting on this piece of wood, I'm looking at fire, I'm looking at a candle with a group of these guides that I'm with. And then I get so I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I'm kind of going in and out of this universe, I guess, or this, Akashic scene. And I get a sense that that when I'm in these scenes, I'm there a very long time. But then I kind of pulled myself out and I'm like, this is just like seconds. And then I go back in and I'm like, this is just like seconds. And it really is seconds if you're looking at the clock, probably. But I'm thinking it's pretty not long. It's not like I'm a day later, it really isn't a long period of time. But when I'm there, I got a sense that you're there much longer than you realize. And then babies birthing all over the world and many peoples, we're all going to be birthing this new us if we decide to do that. But some people will decide not to do that. They'll decide not to birth a new iteration of themselves where they've really done that inner work. And those individuals will burn, like they will become like ashes to ashes, dust to dust, like they will not be there anymore. There'll be this chasm in time and this falling away with the old and the new. And it of course, that's like a macrocosm. The old and the new will fall away, but also the old and new in terms of ourselves and that choice. Do we make that leap into this next iteration of life? And then we each get to decide what our path is. And then okay, so this was kind of cool. I got like an arrow and it was like a sword. And I knew it was a download. Okay, this is a ruins card. And I've had this ruins book that a friend gave me many, many years ago. I don't there. You can see it. It's been eaten by my chinchillas when I had chinchillas, and it's just it's by this guy named Ralph H. Blum and a woman named Kim Cherry, who was my Reiki master way back when in Philadelphia. She gave me this book, and I opened to the warrior card, and it is number 15, the Sky God Tiw, Tiw. And it's the ruin of the spiritual warrior, the one whose battle is always within the self, funding a will through action, yet unattached to outcomes, remaining mindful that all you can really do is stay out of your own way and let the will of heaven flow through you. These are among the hallmarks of the spiritual warrior. So again, just this inner work that is required of us. Okay, so then the word takatary came up. So I looked at the word takatary. I can't find anything what it means, but the word takatary came up, and then this like a lake, and it was just this regular lake, and then it started to boil, almost like these, I think they're called geysers, these like boiling water. things bubbling up from the earth, and little people came through, and then I was told that they're minions. It was like they weren't coming out of the boiling water, but it was almost like this water's boiling and like we're unearthing things. And minions came up. I think there's a movie about minions. I looked that up. I don't know anything about this movie, but I think minions are like workers for the dark. And I think in the movie, then they decided to turn on the dark or like not be these slaves anymore. I don't know, something like that. I think that'll be necessary for people who are enslaved. And these unattached burdens are things that enslave us to unhappiness because they offer us something, some enticement that we think we need to keep us safe, or because we're afraid of them. We're afraid. So those are the two ways that burdens take hold within us. And the way to free them up is a process. One of the pieces of the process is to convince the parts of us that think that we need them more than we need God or self. Is not the way to go, that we need to turn into self energy, which is aligned with spirit for our strength. And then once we can convince our parts that they are no longer needed, these unattached burdens, then we can release the burdens into the light. And that, that's its own process that we can figure out on our own, or we can do some kind of IFS work. But I think that intrinsically, if we decide to let go of the tethers of protection in the material world that we think keep us safe, and realize that the only cord that will keep us safe is the cord within our soul that's aligned with spirit, then we'll have mastered quite a bit, and everything else will fall away that isn't supposed to be there, keeping us captive. All right. And then when I saw this, the word minions come up. Other beings who dwell here will make themselves known more and more. And then I heard a bird chirping. Space and time will start to shift. And this dimension will change. So I wrote down start to shift, and then it came through, it is shifting. Like it is already happening, that this dimension is already changing, and we're already seeing things fall away. It's already happening. It's going to continue to happen. A bird chirped outside to confirm that. And then I got the question, what's on your agenda, folks? Like, what is your agenda for 2025? How much in integrity with you is your agenda? And then I had this visual that the Earth center was like falling away, but it wasn't like it was collapsing. It was just going concave. It was almost like concave world. And this circle of light workers holding hands, holding things together, like holding the Earth together, which doesn't make sense because you'd think it should fall away before something new starts. But it's almost like, no, like holding together maybe the parts of the world that had integrity that needs to stay, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. That was a visual of people holding hands, holding each other up, as the old that needs to fall away falls away. And then Old Lang Syne came up, and it was AULD, Auld Lang Syne or Old Lang Syne, and for old time's sake. And then it's okay, so that's that. So definitely more of the same theme was coming up. And then what does this all mean? Visionary, being ahead of your thinking and having solutions. Then Pluto came up, and I said, what is Pluto? how can we define Pluto simply? And it was the ultimate survival in the never-ending cycle of beginnings and endings. So perfect, the ultimate survival, like what's going to survive, what has merit for us to keep with us from the old, while everything else that doesn't need to be her falls away. A dog barking outside, or dogs barking. And then the message, everything around us that seems unimportant or innocuous has meaning. So really pay attention to what's in your life that might seem unimportant. And one of the ways to do this that I found, it's a practice of hermetics, is to review your day before you go to bed. Like before you go to sleep, review your days. It's like, just think about, like, you got up in the morning, you scraped your tongue, and, you know, you went in the kitchen and you tripped over the, you know, whatever. Just even the little things. Like something came up yesterday where I made a recipe and I had to put like coconut, it had to melt coconut oil, and I put it in the oven. And I had a flash as I was reviewing yesterday. Oh yeah, that coconut oil was in the oven for a few minutes while that oil melted. Like just these innocuous things that we're supposed to remember, we need to pay attention to. And then Plato came up. So Plato came through, and then Dante's Last Dance. So I knew Dante had to do with like Dante's Inferno and, you know, a play. It's like a grand play, but Dante is actually the name of the man, which I didn't know. You might have known that. But I was looking into that, and it's like the 8 spheres of hell. You know, kind of like the opposite of like freeing up our chakras is like going through these realms, like the hell realms, which, you know, the Buddhists would recognize. And one of those kleshas, you know, things that hold us back or enslave us, is greed. And I mentioned that from recent, you know, I think last video, avarice and, you know, extreme greed. And I've been thinking about that in my own life. And one of the things that came up is my issue with time, that I always feel like I have to rush, and what I'm doing is not important, that I have to get to the next thing. And I've heard in the past from other teachers that that is greedy. When we feel like there's not enough time, it's a trait of being greedy. So anyway, Dante's Inferno came up, which goes so beautifully with this message of doing the inner work. And then it came through, like I looked up, like barking dogs has been coming up a lot. And actually I've had dogs who've, yesterday I was walking my dog, and, you know, I have this big pit bull, and I don't like it when dogs run at us, because I don't really know how he's going to behave if dogs are like barking, running at us. And these dogs were like coming at us, and they both had collars on, they were loose, but they were coming at us aggressively, like teaming up, barking, running at us. And I was like, no. And I literally, you know, stomped, no, and they stopped. And then they started coming again, and I had to scream no again. And then they turned around and left. And Theo was just kind of chill. Like, he's like, you got this, you got it. I don't need to, you know, I just need to watch you have this. And then I read that there is Cerberus, who the 3-headed dog that guards the entrance to the underworld. So cool. These messages are starting to have some kind of storyline to them in the last couple of days. At least for me, that might not be your experience, but hope this makes sense for you. I love these messages because they really require us to take some agency for our lives rather than the excitement of what could be happening by the cabal outside of us, when we really need to look at the cabal that's inside of us, maybe making us unconsciously making decisions that might not be in our best interest, to whatever degree that could be. Or on a positive note, we could have these spirit guides that we're really, through love and compassion, we're entertaining more and more within us, that lead us further and further away from the darkness towards the light. So have a good day. Happy New Year. And hopefully I'll see you tomorrow for Free Flow Friday.